Have you ever stopped to think that a sumo wrestler can weigh almost 300 kilograms? What can the strongest athletes in this sport do? Why do they have such large, robust bodies, and how do they achieve such impressive stature? Furthermore, what are the positive aspects of their lifestyle? The truth is that sumo is a much more fascinating sport than most people realize. And what sparks the most curiosity, without a doubt, are the wrestlers themselves. When we think of sumo, the image that comes to mind is that of a Japanese giant, with rounded features and wearing the traditional mawashi belt. The guy with giant arms, massive legs, and a huge belly, like this one. Modern wrestlers really do look like this. But did you know it wasn't always this way? Until the 20th century, sumo wrestlers were much leaner and more muscular. They were more defined, so to speak. They looked a lot like some of the professional boxers or MMA fighters we know today. By the way, even today, there are sumo wrestlers who look much smaller than most. There's a Czech named Pavel Bolyar, also known by his professional name Takoyama Shuntaro. Standing at 185 mm tall and weighing between 90 and 100 kilograms, he was one of the lightest sumo wrestlers of the modern era. But why are most sumo wrestlers so huge? Why can't they be like Pavel and not so fat? The thing is, there are no weight classes in professional sumo. Therefore, many wrestlers try to gain as much weight as possible. Almost all popular wrestlers weigh over 120 kilograms. Otherwise, they don't have much of a chance of winning. Because, as you can imagine, fighting a 320-pound guy when you weigh 180 or 200 pounds is very difficult. It's very unlikely you'll win. That's why sumo wrestlers strive to be as big as possible. That's why they gain weight, and they actually have several methods for doing so. Let's talk about some of them now. On average, sumo wrestlers weigh between 120 and 130 kilograms. Although there are exceptions, with some weighing less than 200 kilograms, or even more than 200 kilograms. But we'll talk about them later. In any case, almost all sumo wrestlers gain weight with the help of special diets and a specific daily routine. Sumo wrestlers must follow a strict routine to gain weight. They wake up very early. Immediately after showering, fighters begin training. Before eating, they typically train for 4 to 6 hours. They must dedicate themselves completely to the process. In other words, it's a very long workout. So, when do they gain mass? After training, wrestlers typically take a hot bath and then eat a meal. On the one hand, the sumo diet is a bit like, eat as much as you can. Most of the time, there are no restrictions. The more calories, the better. They can even drink alcohol. This is considered perfectly normal. On the other hand, professional wrestlers sometimes follow a specific diet. Most aim to consume around 20,000 calories per day, and they usually eat twice a day. To gain weight, many wrestlers eat a soup called chankonabe. It's a type of dish made with various ingredients, typically containing chicken, fish, tofu, and vegetables. Chankonabe is very high in protein. It's often served with beer and rice to increase its calorie content. After eating, fighters go straight to bed. They usually need some rest, as they still have a lot of training ahead of them. Many sleep with oxygen masks to help with breathing after a heavy meal. After sleeping, the fighters do their second training session. Then they eat again and go back to sleep. The next day, the process repeats. This pace allows them to gain enormous amounts of weight, and this makes them more competitive. Of course, all of this has a downside. This type of diet is not normal and is very harmful to the body, especially since fighters are allowed to drink alcohol. Their life expectancy is not very high, about 10 years younger than the average Japanese, but many are willing to make this sacrifice. Now let's talk about their strength and what they're capable of. Obviously, great mass means great strength. Sumo wrestlers have no problem with this. These obese guys are naturally strong, but strength comes not just from weight, but from the training process. It may seem like sumo wrestlers just eat and fight, but that's not entirely true. A rigid routine, an insane pace that repeats itself every day, a strict hierarchy on the training ground, and an intense diet. All of this transforms sumo wrestlers into extremely powerful athletes. They have impressive physiques. Some have enormous biceps and triceps, sometimes as long as a normal person's leg. Even grizzly bears would envy their strength. Thanks to their intense routine, fighters are highly resilient. Their fights usually last only a few seconds. In that short period, they must demonstrate their skills. A large fighter can withstand a blow from another giant at speeds of 50 to 60 km/h. That's when the fight begins. This fact alone is impressive, as an unprepared person would likely be seriously injured by such a blow. Furthermore, sumo wrestlers know how to grab and throw a 150-kilogram opponent or push them out of the circle. This requires incredible strength. Not to mention that in just 10 seconds, they can change tactics several times. And yet, in most cases, size matters. The bigger the athlete, the better. Some fighters embrace this and eat until they become incredibly massive. Some succeed and become champions, leaving their mark on history. The heaviest sumo wrestler in history is Aurora Satoshi, also known as Aurora. You probably think he's Japanese, but no. The heaviest sumo wrestler of all time is a Russian. His name is Anatoly Mikhailov. At his peak in 2018, Aurora weighed nearly 293 kilograms. Imagine his size. Anatoly held the title of heaviest sumo wrestler for several years. In 2017, he became the strongest wrestler in the world. In 2018, when he reached his peak weight, he confirmed that title. And, even after retiring, he remains the heaviest fighter of all time. As for the heaviest Japanese fighter, that title belongs to Yamamoto Yama. Ryuta. Weighing in at 277 kilograms, he was the heaviest Japanese wrestler in history, and probably the heaviest person in Japan. Like Anatoly, Yamamoto Yama is retired. But while Aurora retired voluntarily, in Ryuta's case, it was the Japan Sumo Association that forced him out. All because he was caught in a fixed fight. Between these two giants is the American Saliwa Pauli, from Hawaii. He is the second heaviest sumo wrestler in the world. At his peak, he weighed 285 kilograms. Konosuke's style isn't exactly sophisticated, but his technique is quite reliable and extremely effective. It's no wonder they call him the meat bomb. Of course, size and strength are impressive, but there are downsides to the typical life of a sumo wrestler. We've already mentioned their life expectancy, which is about 10 years shorter. Another downside is that they can't drive cars, not only because of their status, but also because their enormous bellies prevent them from operating the steering wheel properly. Fighters also have several other limitations. In general, the more successful they are, the more privileges they gain. The type of clothing and footwear they wear depends on their level. There are also numerous restrictions on smartphone and internet use. Household chores also vary depending on the fighter's status. The newbies wake up before everyone else. They clean, cook, and do that sort of thing. They also serve the veterans. They say this lifestyle creates a kind of incentive, but it doesn't have to be all bad things, right? Hard training, insane pace, restrictions, all of this should be rewarded, right? And they get it. A good sumo wrestler's salary is quite high. The best can earn monthly salaries of between $30,000 and $60,000. This doesn't include post-competition sponsorship payments. Furthermore, sumo is a very popular martial art in Japan. In the land of the rising sun, sumo wrestlers are highly respected and admired. Some even make interacting with fans a part of their daily routine. And although the wrestlers suffer in various ways, it's all offset by the fact that they earn a lot of money and popularity. Thanks for watching, everyone. Tell us, would you like to be a sumo wrestler? And if you enjoyed the content, subscribe for more, and we'll see you next time.